Hi, everybody. This is Lydia Lopito. And I want to thank everybody for following me on this profile. This is the only profile that I'm using. I do have a page for Cloverleaf Publications, but that's mostly for the children's books. And I have investigative voices as a profile, but that's more for the more technical reports. Just to let you know, I do have other profiles, but this one is my main profile where all of you guys are. So I wanted to thank some of you for supporting me on this. Um, I've been posting about what's going on, and let me tell you that this book, Mourning Our Whales, has created so much hatred against me and even my husband, who had no pen in it. He didn't write it. Somehow they brought him out. These groups, I would say, if you are looking for environmental conscious people, don't go to these groups that say they're environmentally conscious or that they care about the environment or they're actually fighting the windmills, because they haven't done a thing about the windmills. The windmills have been installed without any opposition throughout the East Coast since 2016. And the Republicans or the Democrats did nothing about it. The level of research that was done is laughable, because I went to one of the Rutgers University meetings, and what I learned is that a bunch of interns and young high school people were working there, testing the fish, checking how many fish they had. And I asked them, well, what are you trying to determine from these tests? And they didn't really know. They were just counting fish. I said, but there's no windmills in this bay. You're doing it in a bay that doesn't yet have a windmill. Have you gone to an area where the windmills exist? And have you tested the fish population there and compared it to an area that doesn't have windmills? And they said no. I said, why not? Isn't that part of your test? Shouldn't you be testing both areas? And they said no. And I said, who paid for this study? They said, well, it was Atlantic Shores, the people that are putting up the windmills. I said, oh, I see. So the people that are putting up windmills had you conduct a study that is a total fraud, claiming that there is no effect to the environment from the windmills, by testing an area that never had a windmill, never had any of this. It's beyond anything you can imagine of the fraud that I've seen. So last night I downloaded the proposal from Atlantic Shores, from the Mr. Murphy's website, in which they ask people to provide their public opinion or commentary for this proposal for the wind farm that will be installed on the ocean side of Atlantic City. It's a pretty large wind farm. And I went through it, and then I even had AI examine it line by line, just in case I missed something, to see if there was any mention of whales, any mention of the statistics that I uncovered, which is that 100 whales have died as a result of windmills. And they even admit it. And it has happened in the last less than 3 years, since 2003. In that this documentation is not something I've created. Oh no, this documentation is available from a local organization that tracks these things. And the name of this organization is the New Jersey Whale Strandings by Species and Year Marine Mammal Stranding Center, 12/10/2024 is the study. I have shown you this before. It's a spreadsheet of all the whales, and there are over 100 in there, plus dolphins. I'm not even counting the dolphins, which is another 100. In these, they did the necropsy, which means they try to figure out what killed it, and they were very vague. Of course, they were always saying it was entanglement by nets, or that somehow they got run over by ships. But the fact that all these animals died within 20 miles of a windmill farm was never even considered, mentioned, or even mentioned in the news. And what I did is I calculated how far each of these strandings or deaths, why do they call it strandings? They're actually deaths, of these whales to the nearest wind farm. And the wind farms are as old as 2016 and newer as they were installing them. Okay. So they're all within 20 miles. And I asked, I searched what the distance that a whale, especially a humpback whale, can swim within a day, and it was 100 miles. So the fact that for a humpback whale, 20 miles is basically nothing for them. They can swim it in no time because they're gigantic animals, 30 feet long, tons of, it's like a boat. Okay. It's very hard to imagine how big they are unless you've been right next to them on one of these whale watching tours. The other reason they gave that they died, and never even mentioned the wind farms, is that they were hit by ships. And I went through this before. Ships that carry sonar, they carry uh, radar, they carry all kinds of cameras for underwater. These ships are giant ships that carry a lot of cargo. For the ship to stop, it takes 4 miles. It can't just stop. It's very heavy. Okay, so the ship has to have a means to detect large objects that could potentially sink the ship. Because when you travel from all the way from Europe to the United States and you're carrying a large cargo, you have to be careful that you do not run into an obstacle. This could be anything from a dead whale to uh, a ship that is floating in the water, or a log, or any number of things could be in the water. You know, waters are not always clear. Okay. And if you've been on cruises, you know that the water is not always just water. There's stuff in the water. Okay. So the ships have to have a sophisticated means so they don't run into something heavy and big that's 30 feet, like a whale or anything else. It could be a log, it could be a tree. You know, there's been storms. The trees get uprooted and they end up floating in the ocean, and these are a navigation hazard. So ships are very protected. The other piece of data that I got was that people that run these whale watching trips, they know that a whale will come up to the ship, but is smart enough to avoid the ship and not to run into it. They've seen this over and over again. They come right up to the people watching the whales, and they don't damage the ship. They don't try to push it. They don't try to, destroy it. I'm talking about the humpback whales and the big animals. It's different for killer whales, which are not in this area. Okay. They might actually hurt the ship, so you have to stay away from them. But the humpback whales are just going to go near the ship and observe and be very curious, and then they're going to go out, and they don't run into the ship. Why would they? They know where it is. They can see it. They have eyes. They don't only have eyes, but they have a way in their head to detect sounds and vibrations. Okay, they also navigate the ocean, and they also have to avoid obstacles to survive. Otherwise, they also would run into things and hurt themselves. Okay, so what is killing these whales? Well, the way that the sounds are used by whales in the form of a song that can last 30 minutes is to transmit these frequencies underwater for other whales to hear. And the songs have meanings like words, like you're telling somebody a story. They have words, they have a language, and it's in the form of song. Okay. And they communicate where the food is, where the babies are, where my family is. All of these things are communicated via these songs. However, when you are going near a large installation of windmills, you're going to have noise, and the noise will drown out the songs. They won't hear the songs, and they won't be able to sing the songs in that area. And sometimes the area of a wind farm is pretty extensive because they have to put them at a certain distance apart, okay, for a ship to go around it so ships don't run into. So if you look at a wind farm, you can see it's pretty spread out. And so the noise is spread out. In addition to the noise being a low frequency noise, low frequency travels further than high frequencies. So the low frequencies will definitely drown out or deafen the whales and drown out their song, which is a higher frequency. So it's like somebody playing the drums very heavy, and you're trying to play the flute. The drums are going to outplay the flute. Okay, you're not going to hear the flute or the high notes of a guitar. You're going to hear the heavy drums. Okay, so that's the only way I can explain it to you in terms you can understand. So, okay, so it has been admitted in the report that I downloaded from Mr. Murphy's site that yes, the sounds do affect marine mammals. However, the efforts they put in to try to mitigate this are laughable at best because they have not looked at data related to whale mortality. And there's no excuse for this because I just downloaded this for free. It has hundreds of male mortalities, and it comes from an organization that does nothing but collect this data and provide it online in the form of a spreadsheet, which they can further work with. And I have used this spreadsheet to create my book. So all my whale deaths are correct and accurate. Okay. So what is it that why didn't they use this data as part of their report and explain how they were going to stop the whales from getting deafened by these noises? Well, they claim that the windmills have a low noise design. However, there's no table of decibels or studies that I saw indicating that these windmills have a sound that would be tolerated by whales or marine mammals such as dolphins. They also have not looked at the mortality of these animals near other windmills. As far as I know, from this spreadsheet, there is no column here that says distance from the nearest windmill. Okay. I was able to calculate the distance to the nearest windmill using the location of the windmills and the location of the death of the whale. So I did that calculation and put it into every single one of my dead whales that I published here so that you can judge for yourself as to whether they were too far from the windmill, because I'm also giving you the data that the whale can, depending on the species, a humpback can easily swim 100 miles in a day. Smaller whales, at the Mikey whale, may be able to swim maybe 30 to 40 miles in one day. So they were within their swimming distance. So that means they were on the way down, okay, and they encountered this windmill. They got disoriented, as many people say it disorients the whale, the noise. And they somehow maybe passed out from the noise. As some people say, the high noise could actually make you pass out, because they're so much more sensitive than humans to this noise. They're not, their hearing is just hundreds of times what we hear. And then they probably either starved from not eating for 2 or 3 days, as they were unable to find food because they couldn't figure out where it was, because they have to hear where other whales are telling them that the food is. If they don't hear where it is, they don't know where to go. And if they are just swimming around looking for the food, they're not going to find it. They are absolutely depending on another whale letting them know where the food is. This is unbelievable. They depend on each other. They're social animals, they're intelligent animals, and they're self aware, which is so different than any other animal. Okay, being self aware is very high on the intelligence scale of an animal. So without this data, without them knowing where the food is, they can't possibly find the food. And so 2 or 3 days, they could actually starve, or they could get weak. When once they pass out or they're weak, guess what happens? They don't come up to the surface and they drown, because these are breathing animals. They breathe air. They're like a dog that needs to breathe air. They're not fish, okay? They breathe enormous amounts of oxygen through their top nose. And if they can't get up to the surface because they're too weak, they actually drown. The necropsy studies show that a lot of them had congestion from drowning. Okay, the dolphins and the whales. So they found out that they had water in their lungs, which means they drowned. Okay, so there's so much more information that I was able to get from this information here. I also correlated the information from the Marine Mammals Center with what has been published online by different journals. Every time there's a whale stranding, of course, there's going to be a journalist or somebody that's going to photograph the whale, that's going to uh, give a report about it. There's also a police report or a fireman's report. There's a number of documents that get produced every time a whale uh, gets stranded and then it gets disposed of. Well, I go through all of that information, and from that, I develop a story for you. And the story is personal. I name the whale. I tell you that this was an individual. This was not just an animal that is disposable. This was somebody. He had a family. He was self aware. He was intelligent. He had no idea that you guys put these windmills in the way in his habitat. He was innocent and he went and died because of it, and nobody cares. I also explained to you how each whale, each of 100 whales, it was buried in the sand, usually in the beaches where they're found, with no marker to show who was buried there, because that's not a human being, but it's an intelligent being. Okay, people are talking about aliens. These are intelligent other beings than us. Okay, they don't put a marker, they don't memorize, they don't have a memory of the whale, they don't give her any kind of burial at all. uh Nothing. They don't feel like this being deserves any kind of respect at all. which makes us so different than the Native Americans who would have respected the death of a whale or any animal. Okay. Um, it just shows how callous we are to the wildlife around us and how we disrespect it and treat it like trash. Basically, they treated the whales like trash. They just wanted to bury it where it was cheaper, which is under the sand and the beach. So it decomposed, and little by little, the carbon dioxide and the methane, as the whale decomposes in the sand, comes out. So for the climate change proponents who think that carbon dioxide and methane are a problem, guess what? Every time one of these whales dies, enormous amounts of carbon dioxide and methane are generated by her decaying body, and they bubbles up through the sand wherever they buried her. Okay, that's just a natural process. It is a gigantic animal. And when you have 100 whales, by the way, 100 is what I have for this Northeast area. Throughout the United States, it's estimated we have killed 545 whales in just the last few years, maybe even more, because I'm yet to find other organizations that are tracking whales in the Pacific coast. Okay. I've only tackled the upper part of the Northeast, and this is I found 100 here by an organization that's near Atlantic City, which apparently has no voice because apparently nobody even mentioned them or nobody even looked at their spreadsheet. It's beyond. It's amazing that Mr. Murphy would put out a document that doesn't even mention the data that these people have painstakingly collected over years. Okay, that's not even mentioned in the report. Okay, so 100 is just what we have here, and they are all near the windmills. You'll find that each is within 20 miles of the windmills. You'll find that in your mind, after reading this big book, because I devote 2 or 3 pages to each whale, so you have a lot of whales to go over. And I give them each a name and a story. So it's kind of also entertaining, kind of making you feel like these animals were part of your family or maybe a pet. It's you memorializing these animals and treating them with respect, which is what they deserve. Um, so I think you're going to enjoy the book. I think it's not only just data. I did not want to publish a book that was just raw data or a spreadsheet, because that they've already done and it didn't make an impact on anyone. And I'm sorry if I'm tearing it because this is making me upset. So what I'm going to do right now, and I'm going to make this a little smaller so we can see. I'm going to make myself smaller here. I'm going to read to you the introduction to this book. I read to you one of the stories yesterday, and I think it was very, very impactful. And I think you'll like this introduction. The ocean is vast, mysterious, and teeming with life, but it's also fragile. Among its most majestic inhabitants are the great whales, creatures that have roamed the seas for millions of years. Yet, in just the last year, 30 whales have tragically died. And I say 30, but there's actually 100. I got more data after this. Have tragically died along the northeast Atlantic coast. Their lives cut short in waters now increasingly dominated by the hum of industrial wind farms. This book explores these deaths we believe are not no coincidence, and the ethical questions surrounding humanity's relentless expansion into fragile marine ecosystems. We are at crossroads. Offshore wind turbines, the herald as the solution to climate change, are being installed in known whale migration and feeding grounds. These massive noisy machines disrupt the delicate balance of the marine life, polluting the water with electrical cables and generating a cacophony of sounds that can disorient or even deafen whales. Is it ethical to prioritize such development at the cost of these magnificent creatures' survival? Do we as humans have the right to claim and industrialize their habitat, driving them away from their feeding grounds and threatening their very existence? The data presented here points to the unsettling truth. Many of these whale deaths occur just miles from the wind turbines. Yet, instead of holding wind farms accountable, blame is often shifted to foreign shipping vessels. This narrative does not hold up water under scrutiny. Modern shipping vessels, and I think I went through this before, that what modern shipping vessels. So I'm just going to skip that part. It is shameful that instead of addressing these concerns, the narrative is distorted. Blame is shifted and accountability is deflected. This book challenges that status quo, asking whether the convenience of renewable energy justifies the destruction of iconic marine species. The ethical questions are clear. Are we willing to let wind farms coexist with whale extinction? Or do we have the courage to admit we have made a mistake? Okay, so that's the piece of the introduction. This is the cover so far, and I should be done with this. It's going pretty quickly. I should be done in another week or two with the 100 whales. I think I've only done about 10%. So, but I have it all mapped out. I know which whales I'm dealing with, and it's going to be on Amazon pretty soon for you to enjoy. It's not a depressing book. It's an enjoyable book because we talk about each whale as if they're a person. Okay, we give them names, we tell you about their families, etc. It's important that we personalize these animals because they're being disrespected in such a way that we need to show people that they're beings that deserve our respect. Okay, so now let's talk about the update on what I talked about yesterday, which is the trolls. Okay, and I'm not even going to show this whale. I'm just going to explain to you what happened. So I'll tell you what happened. The minute I posted about my book, The Morning Our Whales, and I said that I have now 100 whales, absolutely proven. A couple of people in this group called the saltwater windmill scam. I think it's called saltwater windmill scam. I was in there. They have 8,000 members, and I posted this, and people started calling me a fraud. Okay, these are people that are supposed to be fighting against windmills. They are from all over. They are from New Jersey, from New York, from Long Island, from different places. And they just asked me if they said that I just didn't do any research, that I'm a fraud, that I'm a scammer, that I'm trying to get money from them, which I didn't get any money, and that I was advertising a book. I said, well, if you don't want me to advertise the book, then I won't advertise the book. But they weren't happy with that. They wanted to screw me to the wall. So they brought my husband in, who has nothing to do with this. He has never been in that group. And they mentioned him by name. They mentioned me by name. They called me every name in the book. And what was the problem? One of them explained to me that I'd come out of nowhere with this information and they don't know where I got it. I said, I got it from the same place you got it from. These guys. I said, these guys, every time a whale dies, they put a line on their spreadsheet, and it's an organization, and it's funded. I said, this is where I get my data from. Oh, you must be a fraud. So they went into my Amazon book. I have another book called 50 Disastrous Windmill projects, and it talks about all the problems with those windmill projects. And they looked at the sample of the book that comes from Amazon. You actually can click on a book, and they'll usually give you the table of contents and then maybe a page from the end of it. And that's pretty much it. You don't get the whole book, of course. You have to pay for it. So they said that I wasn't an author and I hadn't done any research because there was there was nothing in that book. It was an empty book. I said, well, you have to buy it. Oh, you're trying to shake us down for money. I said, well, if you don't want to buy it, don't buy it. I said, I can't give it to you for free because I have a publisher and Amazon gets most of the money to print it. If you wanted to print it, or if you can get it on a Kindle, you can buy a Kindle and display it on your Kindle. But I cannot give you this book for free. And so they went and they said that this book was no good. They never read it. They never purchased it. They never studied it, but it was no good. Okay. Then they went ahead and made posters of me as a scammer. They've never met me before. These are people that are the first thing I hear from them. I was alerted that this was going on by the administrator, of which I will tell you another story. It's called saltwater wind in the ocean, saltwater wind scam. Something like that was the group, of which it seems to be full of crazy people. So this administrator sends me a DM and says that I should call him at his Long Island phone number, gives me a whole story about how he's 80 years old, tries to flirt with me, is very nice, and says, look, I want to help you. These people are bullying you. I said, yeah, you think? They're calling me a scammer. They're calling my husband a scammer. They're saying that I don't know what else they're saying. I mean, they have all kinds of memes about me, saying that, and, lying about me. Okay. So I said, you think they might be bullying me? And he says, yes, I want to help you. So he says that in order for him to help me, I better write a letter to Mr. Van Drew, our congressman. And when I get the letter back, this is on his email. I can prove this. He wrote to me. He even wrote to me what I should write on the letter. I should get the letterhead and paste it onto a letter that he wrote. And we'll photograph that and say that Mr. Van Drew is recommending me. Okay. And I'm like, wait, you want me to forge a letter? You want me to take the man's letterhead and cut and paste the letter that you wrote on that letter, and then you're going to save me from the scammers? I said, why don't you just ban the trolls that are defaming me, or suspend them until they take back their accusations? Oh no, he says, you have to do, but send me 3 letters about how he wants me to put this letter that he wrote onto the letterhead of Mr. Van Drew. Okay. This is unbelievable. I should write a book about this. It's unbelievable. And then he will post a picture of that letter on the letterhead that Mr. Van Drew wrote it, but he wrote it. Okay. I'm like, you're asking me to forge a letter from a congressman of the United States of America. Okay. I am beyond any kind of, I was in shock. I have his email. He sent me the letter that he wants me to paste. And he says, no, you could just take whatever letter if they send you a note about your book, you could just paste it onto this letter and we'll show it to these people. I said, no, they'll put me in jail, because if I forge a letter from the United States congressman, I can go to jail. This is forgery. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. Okay? You're insane. You're crazy. No. And I said, why do I need a letter from the congressman so that your group of harassers can accept me into their nasty rat's nest of people. I said, why do I need to be um, approved by people that have called me a scammer, a liar? My husband is a liar. We're just trying to take people for money. All this stuff. I said, when I've been on this business for 40 years, there's articles and articles and books about me and stories about me all over the internet. Why would I have to do that? Okay. So I said, look, if this is what you want me to do, you're asking me out of 8,000 people to come up with a letter from the congressman to verify me, but you have not asked any of your 8,000 people to come up with some verification that they are who they are. You're only asking me. And on top of that, you're asking me to forge a letter from a United States Congressman, Mr. Van Drew. I didn't even send this letter to Mr. Van Drew. I don't want to upset him. It's terrible. Mr. Van Drew is a wonderful man. I would never involve him in this insanity. Okay. But the man is 80 years old. The one that runs this group is 80. I don't really think he's flying on all thrusters, as they say. I think he's maybe mentally gone, because to send me a letter and say, look, here's a letter that you should write, and just put it on the letterhead of Mr. Van Drew. He actually explained that to me in an email. I have to think the man is just not thinking straight, because he's 80. Maybe his mind is going. But you don't ask somebody to forge a letter from a United States congressman. It's not good. Okay. So I didn't do it. I told him, no, I don't want to introduce Mr. Van Drew into this picture. I don't really care about his group. I don't care about what they say about me. And I left the group and I banned those people. Well, I found those people were still trashing me all over all the other groups. Okay. They were putting the meme that I was a scammer everywhere. Okay. To try to discredit my book. This is, let me just put this here. This is the book they want discredited. The fact that there are 100 whales that died. But they can't discredit it. You know why? Because first, they would have to discredit this. They would have to discredit the data from a well-known and verified organization. Okay? Because it is called, again, the Mammal Stranding Center, Marine Mammal Stranding Center, okay, which is nearby, okay? They would need to completely discredit that data, but they can't, because that is verified data. So I'm not using anything I've made up, okay? I explained exactly that if I made up a story about the whale, it has nothing to do with the data. I just wanted to personalize her, make her give a name, show her she had kids, whatever, just to make you feel close to her. But it's not changing anything, okay? So they then invented that I solicited funds from them when I never did. They asked me for 300 names to prove that I had data. They said, give me a list of every single whale that you're claiming has died. I said, well, if you want me to make a list of every single whale and give it to you, you'd have to pay for my time. Okay. So then they turned that around and said that I was soliciting money from them. I said, no, I didn't. Just, you asked for information and it's not free. Okay. It's not free. I don't have to give you information for free. So they did everything in the book to discredit me. And so what did I come up with? Okay. So in desperation, I asked AI, because I do a lot of work with AI, and you can ask AI all kinds of things. You can ask about your brother-in-law. You can do whatever. You know, it's an actual intelligence, and it can help you in a lot of tricky situations, give you the right thing to do, the right thing to say. So I asked AI what was going on with these people, and it said that most of the time in these groups, that, and I did post a video about this. They also didn't like my chat GPT, video GPT videos because they're not used to technology. I think, in fact, they can't imagine that a woman 72 could possibly be using AI or technology. Therefore, I must be a fraud because girls can't be engineers. Girls cannot be intelligent. Girls cannot have science backgrounds or do anything good like write a video with chat GPT or video GPT. Oh no, it was also, they were bigots because I'm a woman, because I'm Hispanic, because I wrote a book. They were trying to test me and say, you can't write. So they were looking to see if they could test if I could write. I'm like, I'm selling the books all over the place. They must be able to write. I've been working as a tech writer for 40 years. They said, prove it. I said, I don't know. Look at my resume. It's on LinkedIn. So, these people are the worst scum of the earth. Okay. Not only were they trying to drag me through the mud to keep me from publishing a book, they were libeling me online. I should sue them. I don't know if I should bother. Put down on the notes whether I should sue these people or not. I have their names. I know where they live. I definitely have all the screenshots of all the things they've said about me. And I've definitely reported there was two groups. One was this one with the saltwater windmill scams, and the other one was Island Park Wind, an Island Park Wind anti-wind group. Okay, I don't know if I should sue them. My husband says don't bother. These people are not worth your time. I would say he's right. It's not worth my time. Just leave them alone. I left the groups. Besides, I don't sell any books in those groups. My books are not selling in the United States. They're selling in the UK, and a lot, because apparently the people in the UK need these books. I never even thought they would buy them, but they do. So apparently, even though these issues happen in the United States, they're trying to learn from us to see how we are tackling these issues. Okay. So they are buying my reports, and I'm doing very well with them, but not in the United States. The United States people I'm sorry, are buried by constant propaganda. And I think I've definitely discussed yesterday that I had AI evaluate the first page of Google for certain keywords and tell me which of these articles was propaganda and which was a genuine article. And it told me there was a 67% propaganda measurement, because AI will measure the text using keywords and composition and everything, and it actually can put a number on the level of propaganda on a page. And it's an amazing tool. So it actually told me, oh, this is 67% propaganda. I said, oh, good to know. All right, skip it. Okay. So AI told me it's all propaganda. So as I said before, I had to eliminate Google and Bing from my research. I use another. I'm not even going to tell you which one it is, just in case somebody rigs it. Um, I used a couple of search engines now. AI helps me go through the search engine results and go through and summarize the articles that exist in those pages as links. And one search engine will search public information, the other one will search academic information. And on top of that, I will go into certain databases, uh, such as this particular one of the marine life, and extract information from the spreadsheets and augment it. By augmenting data means I take that data and I search for more information for that data point. Okay. And that's very technical. But in the end, that I try to make a story about, because most people won't understand the database. Okay. It's too technical what I'm doing. So if you don't understand what I'm doing, I know it's hard. I was a database programmer for a long time, even though these people don't believe I have a technical bone in my body. But what can I say? They're bigots, prejudiced, Because I'm Hispanic, they noted that I'm Hispanic because they always check to see. They noted that I'm a woman and I'm claiming to have um, technical background. One guy says, "You can't possibly be a technical person. You're a fraud. You didn't write anything. You didn't do any research." And I said, "Okay." And that's all because I'm a woman. So I wrote a little post for people that are on my page here about the bigotry that I'm experiencing now as a woman engineer. Even though I'm retired from engineering, I was an engineer. I graduated in 1976 as a chemical engineer. And now, years later, with this new woke situation, or whoever it is, these people, I'm back of being, uh, I'm being uh, discriminated against because I'm a woman, because they don't believe that women could be anything more than just a pretty body inside a pretty dress. They don't think we can do any technical stuff. We've gone back to those days, the days before I went into engineering, when they told me a woman should never be an engineer. I was the first one that graduated from Manhattan College as a chemical engineer. Okay. And I got a scholarship too. Um, but, in those days, women couldn't be doctors, women couldn't be engineers, women had to stay home and, and raise a family, and we weren't allowed to be engineers. And even if we did become engineers, we weren't smart enough. Well, we've come back to those days. Okay. What I've encountered here was a massive number of men, bigoted men, patronizing me, and one of them asking me to forge a letter from a United States congressman. If you don't believe me, I will be happy to send you a screenshot of the man's letter, because I know it's hard to believe that he asked me this. I can only assume the man is crazy. And I didn't want to pursue it further because I know that 80 people can lose their minds. So I said, well, whatever. It's not like I was going to do it. He suggested it. It doesn't mean I'm going to do it. I didn't want to put anything on a letterhead for Mr. Van Drew. So this is what I faced. Bigots. A lot of the bigots were from the fishing groups. The fishing groups were the worst because it's a manly man sport. And how can a woman, I'm a fraud, how can a woman write a report about dead whales or do any data analysis? She's a fraud. Okay. So these are the people that were trolling me. These are people that don't believe women should be engineers. So I put a post in there about the challenges I've been facing lately, which is unbelievable to me, about being an engineer and the bigotry that I experience here on Facebook for it. As you all know, I had a problem with one of my eyes. I still have a problem with this eye. It paralyzed. So the therapy was sewing. And this happened 3 years ago. And I had to sew and try to move the eye and work on something that wasn't the screen. So I started sewing bags and I made a business. Everything that I do, I always make it into a business. So I made the bags, I sold them, and I still have the business called Lydia's Bags. And I have, I don't know, something like 100 bags on eBay that I've made, and I sell them. Okay. I also go to craft shows and show my bags, and I call it Lydia's Bags. So that was my eye therapy. That doesn't mean that all I do is sew bags. And so I put my resume in there of the history of my resume, that I was an engineer, that I worked. I also own my own software company, and I supplied software to municipalities. Some of them are still my clients. And I did database programming, and I did technical writing for major Fortune 500 companies, and I have the list. So I have a little resume in there. I also, have a detailed resume on LinkedIn. And I write these books now in my retirement. I write these books. So just this one. I also write children's books. I'll show you one. I have 22 books. This was Benton. He's so cute. He's a little bat. And every one of my children's books is all about the environment and to help kids with the environment. Okay. And in addition to the children's books, I write novels that are also about the environment. And in addition to that, I wrote reports that are about the environment, climate change, whales, windmills, DARPA. I have one on climate manipulation, storm makers. I have about 9 reports now. So these are technically made. These are highly technical. They deal with AI. They deal with all kinds of high technology, and they're very highly technical. And that's what I used to do as a technical writer. I wrote about highly technical things. It made them easy to understand. That's what I did. Okay, for 40 years, and that's what they paid me money to do. Okay, and I did quite well. I have to say that's why I'm retired now and enjoying my life. Uh, so definitely that people are saying that I'm a fraud because I can't write, or judging me by the fact that I'm a woman and therefore they assume that I don't know anything. It it bothers me because young people who are women who are trying to go into the sciences are going to face the same discrimination. And of course, you look on the internet and what do you see? Women being mocked, women being treated as toys, women being treated as objects, women putting makeup on that looks like they're plastic dolls. What's going on with women on the internet is beyond anything I can comprehend. I thought we were past all this, but we're not. So I just wanted to point out to my women followers, thank you. Oh my goodness, it helps a lot that you guys support me. Take a look at my resume. I'm not trying to show off. I put it there for the trolls who keep asking for my resume and tell me I know nothing. I don't know why I put it there, but I put it there. You want to know what my background is, that's what it is. And the trolls will be trolls. They're not going to silence me, but they are going to go to court. My husband says no, but I'm a vengeful person. I just can't deal with these people. So let me just show you again who the trolls are. Let's see. Let me put this like this so we can see the slide. Rose Willis is one. Joseph Apanowicz is another one. B.T. Anthony, Keith Uzel, Robert Loader, and a bunch of others that have called me all kinds of names because they claim that they're helping the whales, but they're helping themselves. I think these groups, is what AI said, is that they turn, instead of being activists, it turns into kind of an exclusive club. They meet each other on the groups, and they meet each other personally. They go for maybe a meeting. They claim that they're fighting the whales, and they put up a sign. They have a couple of beers. They have some fun, and they go home. And then they post a meme, and they think that's the extent of being an activist. Well, being an activist in the 1960s, I know that's not what it takes to be an activist. You have to really put yourself out there. You have to work hard. Being an activist means, well, in those days, we used to write letters by hand and write hundreds of them. And being an activist, you stood in front of some place and put your signs up, and it got cold, and it was terrible, and people were aggressive. Being an activist means going to meetings and presenting your case over and over and over again. Being an activist means writing books like I'm doing with data that they can't really fight against. They can't really do anything about because it's all referenced. Okay. Being an activist does not mean you sit around with your friends and have a couple of beers, post a meme, tomorrow and then go home. That's not an activist. That's an inactivist. Okay. And that is why right now we have 30 windmills since 2016 with over 100 groups on Facebook who are claiming to be anti wind, and they're all whining about it, but they're doing nothing. That's why nothing gets done. Not because of the politicians don't listen to them, because they don't make themselves be listened to. They don't work hard enough. They're too comfortable posting online and doing nothing. They don't get up off their ass and go out and demonstrate and go out and meet people and go out and form alliances. When you have a situation with someone like me with real data comes in to sell a book, try to sell her book. Wait, make a deal, okay? Don't chase her out and call her a fraud and then go back to your little group, your little clique after you bullied her out. Okay, don't do that. That's not that, if you're doing this to every person that comes in that has anything to share, this is why you have over 100 groups, and they're all divided and they're all fragmented, and no one is working with anyone else. No one works with anyone else because of the way I was treated. They probably treated a lot of people like this. They want to keep you out of their little clique. It's like a high school clique. You do not belong here. They told me, you're not welcomed here. I said, but I posted good stuff about whales. No, we don't want you. Your stuff is made with AI, and we don't like AI. I said, if you don't like AI, and you're working in 2023 trying to fight the system who uses AI all the time, you're going to lose. I said, the AI is important because you need the AI to help you produce content that will be impactful and do it within a reasonable time and cost. I said, if you're rejecting AI and think you're going to make a difference with all these ugly memes you make, with all these ugly graphics you make that nobody cares about, I said, you're not doing anything. I'm doing something. I'm using AI and you can use it too. It's an app. You can use AI. I said, so the asinine minds of these people is showing you why the windmills ended up being built. Okay, they ended up being built because no one with a head really fought them, including myself. I should have been more involved in this, but during 2016, I didn't live in this area. I didn't live near the coast, so it didn't affect me. Okay, now that I am, and they're going to build something in Atlantic City, it is affecting me, so I have to get involved. But I was hoping to have more support. I didn't get any. You don't get support. People that just want to be comfortable, and they don't want you if you're producing. They said my videos were great. They were very cool, but they didn't want them. I said, okay, why? We don't want them. Okay. So these are the people. As I said, those people have been reported. Every single one of these people has been reported to Facebook. I don't know that they're going to do anything because the keywords that they used against me are there. They used words like psycho, fraud, scammer, and a couple of others that I can't say. Bad words. They also involved my husband, who doesn't belong to a group, and I don't know where they got his name from. So they're invading my privacy. And they asked for my resume, which is bad because that means they're trying to get your information to scam you out of your money. You don't give your resume to people with your address on it because, now they have a way to use fraud, to fake your ID. Okay. So these are all things that these people did to me. And so I quit every single one of these groups. I'm no longer in those groups. I don't belong to any group. I'm on my own here. Okay. I'm doing this all by myself because it's hard to get good help. So me and AI, I call her Ida Chin. She's my AI helper. She's Ida Chin. She helps me with everything. And so, yeah, but the book is going to be out. Ida's helping me with it. Ida Chin is helping me with it. It's making some of the images, it's making some of the words, it's summarizing and looking for the information. Ida Chin is doing a great job. And I love this book, the way it's coming out. I love this picture, and I think you're going to like it too. And these whales are beginning to take a shape. They're beginning to be alive to me. And I mourn for them every day. Every time I write another one, I mourn for it. So goodbye, guys. I hope you enjoyed this. By the way, these posts are sometimes replayed, but they become podcasts. So they go on different podcast platforms. You might find me, and every time I make one, it goes into the podcast. So a lot more people hear about it than just you guys. Bye bye now.